unbiased, fan-friendly Syracuse sports coverage on WSKO Syracuse. A Cumulus media station, the voice of the Central New York sports fan, The Score, 1260. Welcome to your home for local sports in Syracuse. Outside the Box Score with Mark Rowlands starts right now.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Outside the Box Score with me, Mark Rowlands, your home for local sports in Syracuse, right here on the Score 1260. Good show for you today. In just a couple of minutes, I'll be calling up a good friend of mine, friend of the show, John Bowman, former CBS Sports Insider. You can currently find him on Dub Club, giving all of his baseball picks, and John has been great with his baseball picks this year. So if you are interested in gambling on baseball, there's no better person to follow than my good friend John Bowman. So he will be joining in just a couple of minutes. I'm going to give him a call around 11:05. We're going to talk about the MLB draft that happened this past week, talk a little bit about the All-Star game, and of course, it's one of my favorite weekends of the year, outside of the Open Championship, of course, which we're going to talk about later. But outside of the Open Championship, it is the Baseball Hall of Fame induction weekend in lovely Cooperstown, New York. I will not be making the trip this year. I've gone to 4 induction ceremonies in my life. I will sadly not be going to this one, and it's a great class we've got this year. Adrian Beltre, Todd Helton, Jim Leland, and Joe Mauer. 4 guys that, in my opinion, are slam dunk Hall of Famers. We'll see what John thinks when he comes on in a couple of minutes. So we're going to talk a lot about baseball today. Like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about the Open Championship over there at Royal Troon across the pond. Maybe talk about who will be named champion golfer of the year this year. And specifically, I want to talk about Rory McIlroy because Rory's got a real problem in the majors right now. And I don't know how to fix it, but we're going to try. Rory should retire. We're going to try to fix Rory in just a little bit because he is still such a tremendous ball striker. He is still, in non-majors, one of the best players in the world. I just don't know what his problem is with everything on the line. It has been 10 years since Rory McIlroy won a major. It was the Open Championship 10 years ago. I don't get it. I really don't get it. But like I said, we're going to go a lot more in depth with that later on in the show. And then, of course, phone lines will be open after John Bowman chimes in. So 315-671-1260 if you want to call into the phone lines. That's 315-671-1260. Take a quick timeout. We'll be right back with John Bowman, former CBS Sports Baseball Insider, currently doing baseball with Bowman on Dub Club. He'll be joining us right after this on the Score 1260. For the best local beer in Central New York, the only place you need to look is Myers Creek Brewing Company, with 16 different beers on tap at both the Inner Harbor in Syracuse and the Palace that is the Cazenovia location. Myers Creek has something for everyone. Want a bite to eat? Both locations feature a kitchen with delicious pizzas, some of the best wings in Syracuse, and much more. Make sure to check out our friends at Myers Creek Brewing Company, the official bar of Outside the Box Score.
This clearance sale is so hot, we're keeping it going. The Drivers Village Used Car Mega Sale. One location, one big clearance at the Used Car Warehouse and everywhere at Drivers Village through July 31st. See more at dvused.com.
Summer is here, and you know what that means. Savings galore. Get ready to save big with our sweet deals on some of the best spots in Central New York. Go to thescore1260.com and click on sweet deals to score amazing discounts on top destinations like Apex Entertainment, Dave & Buster's, the summer golf cart featuring 4 courses.
I don't know about that last one, Pat. I am still a Rory fan, despite the fact he's from the wrong part of Ireland. What's your beef with Rory? Did he lose you money like you lost me money this week? Doesn't support his fellow Catholics. I wasn't even talking crap about the horse. I bet Rory to win the Open, and then he misses the cut. He goes like 78, 79 or whatever it was. No. I was at Yeah, I lose money on my own quite often. I lost money in the St. Pat's parking lot last night playing blackjack. Oh yeah, it was great. Love St. Pat's weekend. Big weekend. Hall of Fame, the Open, St. Pat's. I'm going on a trip after the show. It's great. And we're back outside the box score with me, Mark Rowlands, your home for local sports in Syracuse, right here on the score 1260. Being joined on the phone lines now by the one, the only, John Bowman. Does baseball with Bowman. You can find his picks on Dub Club. I highly recommend them. I've been a follower for a couple of years now, and John does great work. John, how are we doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And there's a lot of things going on in the world of baseball right now, but I want to start with something that you and I have talked many times before about college baseball, and the culmination of the college baseball season every year is the MLB draft. And we just had the draft this past week. In my opinion, very interesting first round. I know we sort of texted back and forth the night of the first round. I just want to get your overall take on the first round of the draft this year.
Yeah, I mean, we've got so we don't have the worst teams drafting first, right? So I think we have teams with a little bit of a different need now at the top of the draft. Usually, it used to be those teams that aren't really competing, in the next year or two that are competing down the line, and they're kind of looking for that either super high upside or they're looking for that, dominant high school player that's going to turn into, an absolute stud. Whereas with the draft lottery, you kind of get teams that are starting to compete at the top and teams that are kind of looking for different things. So the top of the draft actually didn't go, I guess, unexpected. Like I thought that's how it would go. That being said, that's not how I would have drafted it. And then there were definitely a few surprises in the first round as well.
So tell the people, Travis Bazzana, second baseman out of Oregon State. I know, really, really solid ball player. This is a guy that I think Cleveland could see pretty soon. What's the scouting report on Travis?
Yeah, exactly. So he kind of just fits the Guardians mold, to be honest. He's great bat to ball skills, walks a ton, doesn't strike out a lot, still showed power. He had 28 home runs last season. He still has the upside too. He's from Australia. He hasn't been playing, baseball his whole life. He used to play cricket, I believe, and kind of transferred and realized, he can make a career out of this baseball thing, and that's why he's got such good bat to ball skills. But he's, like I said, he's like the exact Guardians mold. Doesn't strike out a ton, walks a ton. He stays in the zone when he swings, and he still has some power and upside. As he's still growing and getting better.
I was surprised that I'm looking at the pick value for number one this year was $10.5 million. The Guardians were able to get him for below 9. Now I know we see a lot of guys take slightly less than slot value to, the team wants to sign another guy with a pretty big bonus that they take in the second or third round or something. The Red Sox do this almost every year. That's how I'm so familiar. But I was surprised that he was willing to sign for that's not an insignificant amount of money, less than the value of the first overall pick.
Yeah, so this year was a little weird in that sense. You've got Chase Burns and Charlie Connon going 2 and 3. They both got the same signing bonus, and they set the record over Paul Skeens last year, who was obviously the number 1 overall pick. So it's definitely interesting in that sense. But like you mentioned, a lot of it has to do with baseball drafts are weird for for anyone that doesn't follow them. It doesn't go like the best player necessarily goes first.
Yeah.
Or the 5th best player goes 5th. There's a lot that has to do with signing bonuses and slot value. And essentially, every team is given a certain amount of money, depending on where they're picking, to give all their players, their drafted players, a signing bonus. And certain guys command higher signing bonuses than their slot value. And so if you're going to give one guy higher than his slot value, you've got to take away that money from another guy later in the draft. So certain teams use that to their advantage, and they'll pick, maybe a guy under slot value in the first round, and then go to, say like a high school player in the second round, go over slot value to try to entice him to not go to college, something like that. And the agents are constantly in contact with these teams about, where they'd accept their signing bonuses and stuff. So it's not like they draft these guys and then they start having these conversations. They're totally in conversation, all the way through the draft, and it kind of goes back and forth. It's like, okay, would you accept this if we offered it to you, and if we drafted here, and if they get the yes, then they get to go ahead. Because if they don't sign, we saw it like Kumar Rocker a couple years ago.
Yep.
If they don't have any more eligibility in college, they're kind of just playing independent ball or another league until they can go to the draft the next year. So the teams know that they have leverage in that sense.
Now, this is interesting because I haven't really thought of this aspect of it before, but we only saw 10 high schoolers in the first round this year, only one of them in the top 10. Do you think the whole NIL thing has anything to do with that now, where these guys can make money when they go to college, so it's a lot harder to entice them to go pro? Or do you think that NIL hasn't quite caught up to the baseball world yet?
I think NIL definitely has an impact. I think there are a lot of factors that are why we don't see high school guys go as high as we used to. One is a lot of people are realizing that there's a lot of development that can be done in college, and a lot of these college players are getting polished. And also, like, if you're a player, it's not, if you get drafted out of high school, you go straight to the minor leagues. The minor leagues are a grind.
Yeah.
They're not fun. You're on these bus rides, 10-hour bus rides. You're traveling constantly. Whereas you could go to college, and now you can also get paid, and you can you can enjoy college essentially, and play for those teams instead of sitting on a bus and kind of just going straight to the professional route. So I think a lot of guys are realizing how much college can help them in their careers. And I think NIL also has to do with it. I also think, like I said, the draft lottery, we have a lot of teams that aren't necessarily going for that, that aren't going to compete in a couple of years. We have a lot of teams that are going to draft maybe these polished college players ready to bring them up in a year or two. And I think we're seeing that in general as well. A lot of these players are coming up a lot faster than they used to. Like we've seen Skeens come up already really fast. We've seen the Angels do it a lot. So I think there are a lot of factors that play in there.
A team that does that a lot is the team that drafted my favorite player in college last year, Hagen Smith. The Chicago White Sox, it seems like every 3 years they just draft a really hard-throwing lefty out of college, and he pitches like 4 minor league games, and then they call him up. They do this all the time. They did it with Sale. They did it with Rodon. They did it with Crochet. Do you think that's sort of the path for Smith on Chicago?
I think so. I think a lot of these teams have a mold and what they're like looking for in the draft, and if they're successful with it, then they continue it. So that's why we see, the White Sox pick, like a Hagen Smith, a hard-throwing lefty. That's why we usually see the Chicago Cubs. They almost never draft pitchers, especially early. They're a big bats team, and then they'll go and sign pitchers.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been their philosophy for a while, and it got them their World Series win in 2016. So if it works for them there, then they're going to continue to do that. So I think there are a lot of factors there, but if you're successful drafting a certain type of player, then there's no reason not to continue to do it.
Who do you think was the steal of the first round? Was there anyone that stuck out to you that fell a lot further than you thought they might, and you're thinking, wow, that team just got a player?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first one that stands out is Jack Caglianone and dropped all the way to 6.
Yep.
I thought he should be the number 1 overall. I thought he was the best player in this draft, and I think that even without his pitching, I think just that alone, that he's the best player in this draft. And I mean, let alone a guy who throws 100 from the left side. That being said, it'll be very interesting, how he goes up through the ranks, because the Royals are going to give him a chance to play two-way, but his pitching is definitely a little bit behind his hitting. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that, because if he's hitting, 400 in single A, but he's got a 5 ERA, what are you going to do? Do you push him up? Do you promote him, or do you keep him there and kind of get his pitching better? So it'll be very interesting to see how they do that. I think another look is Vance Honeycutt, went 22nd to the Orioles.
Yep.
He set a ton of records at UNC. He's a 5-tool player. He can hit. He can steal bases. He hits for power. He's really got all the tools that you need. His only problem is he strikes out a ton.
Yeah.
That being said, that isn't as big of a factor in today's MLB. Teams don't care as much how you get your outs. It just matters if you're getting out or not. So, and especially if he can cut that strikeout down, then he would easily skyrocket to a top 5 draft pick. So I think Vance Honeycutt and Cags are probably the 2 main guys.
And Vance Honeycutt, of course, just looks like every other Orioles prospect, so they had to draft him. What was your surprise pick in the first round? Like, you couldn't believe that guy actually went in the first round, because I have one, and I think you might have a similar one.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's going to be the same guy, but it's got to be the Yankees and Ben Hess here.
Yeah. What do they do? I watched Ben Hess a few times this year. I was never impressed by him, let alone a first-round pick. I figured he was going to get drafted, but that seemed like a real stretch by the Yankees to me.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's pretty insane. He was the Alabama ace for, I'd say, probably the first half of the season. And then he ran into some real trouble and kept struggling, multiple outings in a row. I want to say it was like Georgia, where he gave up, 6-7 runs in the first inning, something like that. And then he got demoted to the Saturday role and was their second best pitcher. But he didn't improve when that happens. He kept pitching pretty poorly. He's got like a 5-something ERA on the season. He throws 96. He's got some good stuff, but you don't want to draft stuff in the first round. You want a guy that's either got massive upside or a guy that is going to make the major leagues. And I don't think he has either of that, to be honest. And there were a lot of guys that they passed over to draft him. Even some pitchers like, Kyle DeBarge is an unbelievable player out of ULL. Blake Burke out of Tennessee. They went over Brody Brecht, who's he's got a lot of control issues, but he throws 100. He's at least got the upside. Tommy White. Chris Cortez from Texas A&M. He was a reliever, but he was a long reliever and can throw 100 and was consistently hitting 100. He's got unbelievable stuff. Jonathan Santucci. There's Peyton Toll. There were so many pitchers, so many players in general that I would have drafted above him. I would have expected, and he was expected to be like a 3rd or 4th round pick too, by most experts. So it's not just me but I really can't believe that pick, to be honest.
I'm glad you mentioned Tommy White, because Tommy Tanks was the talk of college baseball a couple of years ago at NC State when he went on that unreal run. He transfers to LSU, was on track to legitimately be in the number 1 overall pick conversation, ends up falling to Oakland in the 2nd round. What do you think happened there?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's a lot of we've kind of seen his peak in a sense, is like there's not a lot of unknown.
Yeah.
A lot of teams are looking for that guy that can take the next step and kind of impress and kind of, the high upside, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy White, he has high upside, but he's kind of already hit it. He's shown his high upside in college. And I mean, he's like your guy that is going to be a major leaguer at some point. You pretty much know that he's going to make it up there. You just don't know how successful he'll be.
Yeah.
And a lot of these teams in the first rounds, like I said, you're kind of looking for upside. You want to look for maybe that all-star or maybe that guy who's going to have the 10, 15-year career, not necessarily the guy who is going to make the major leagues and, who's you pretty much know what you're going to get out of him. I mean, I think it's a great pick. We kind of saw the same idea last year with Yohandy Morales from Miami.
Yep.
He was definitely a top 10 pick, maybe a top 5 pick going into the year. And he had an unbelievable year, but he dropped all the way to the second round to the Nationals. So I think it's just a lot of teams looking for that upside instead of that like surefire major league player.
Last guy I want to ask you about is Charlie Condon. Is there a more perfect fit in the world than him in Colorado?
Yeah, Colorado with the bat, in Coors Field. I mean, that's definitely a great fit for him. Obviously, if you're a hitter, you would love to play at Coors Field. They made who's their second round? They've had some good drafted some good players in this draft.
They got Brody Brecht as well.
Brody Brecht, that's who it was. Yeah. So I mean, adding him as well, high upside. You've got Chase Dolander already in that system. He's been pitching unbelievably in the minors.
Mm-hmm.
So the Rockies have got some guys. They're going to be on their up soon. But Charlie Condon's a great pick. I think I would have loved to see Cags in Coors Field as well.
Oh,
He's hitting 500. But no, Charlie Condon's definitely a good option as well.
All right, want to get away from the draft for a second. It was the All-Star break. What were just your general thoughts? Derby, All-Star game, good, bad? What were your thoughts this week?
I mean, I thought it was fun. I always like the All-Star game. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to make an All-Star game like worth something, and I still think MLB has the best one. I mean, the NBA one is terrible. There's no defense whatsoever.
Yeah.
NFL, that's not even a game anymore.
The Pro Bowl stinks. The Pro Bowl is awful.
Exactly. The NHL one's pretty fun. 3-on-3 back and forth for $1 million. Like that's pretty fun. I think that's the only one that kind of compares with Major League Baseball. But I mean, the home run derby, I've said it before. I think they should go back to outs. I don't like the timed.
I agree.
The timed at bats and seeing just how many home runs you can hit, and there's kind of redundancy issues when you say, okay, 3 minutes or like 27 pitches. It's like, well, just choose one,
yeah.
We're not going to sit here all day and just have, a pitch come in, wait like 20 seconds, have another pitch come in. Just either choose a number of pitches or choose a time if you're going to do that. But I like outs because we kind of saw even after, these timed sessions that all the leverage was in these, they get 3 outs and they can hit as many as they can. And I think that was the most fun when you see these guys knowing that they have to hit a home run to keep going, and they hit 3, 4, 5 in a row. I think that's the most fun. So I didn't like the format, but maybe they're getting somewhat closer by allowing, a certain amount of pitches and not just having it like rapid pitch and seeing how many you can hit out. But, what can you do?
And before we get you out of here, it's my favorite weekend of the year, and that's Hall of Fame induction weekend in Cooperstown. Have you ever been to an induction ceremony?
I have not. I think that would be super fun. I would love to go to Cooperstown. I know a lot of kids growing up would play like tournaments there.
Yep.
And I never got to do that, unfortunately.
It's a great town. My dad and I go at least once a year. This year we're going twice. I've been to 4 induction ceremonies, and I highly recommend it. They are so much fun. But the class this year, Adrian Beltre, Todd Helton, Jim Leland, and Joe Mauer. In my opinion, all 4 of these guys are slam dunks. Helton should have been first ballot, and this is an all-time class almost. What are your thoughts on the 4 going in?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think they all deserve it. I mean, Adrian Beltre probably should have had 100%. I mean, he's one of the best third basemen that ever played, both offensively and defensively. Todd Helton, unbelievable player. A lot of voters kind of like, I wouldn't say like look over playing at Coors Field, but they kind of look at playing at Coors Field differently
Yeah.
for a lot of those Rockies, which I guess makes sense. But I mean, he's still an all-time player. And then Joe Mauer, I mean, he didn't play terribly long, but he's one of the, he's once again one of the best catchers to play. And then he even transitioned to first base later in his career. And as a catcher, you don't necessarily need 15 years in the league to make the Hall of Fame like that. So, I mean, he's one of the best hitters as a catcher of all time. He definitely deserved it as well.
Do you think Joe Mauer getting in first ballot paves the way for Buster Posey? Because I don't know if there's two better comps you can have. Both of them won an MVP. Mauer won the 3 batting titles. Posey won 3 World Series. These are two guys that seem to be pretty aligned, even in the sense that their careers were kind of derailed by injury. Do you think this means Buster Posey is going to get in on the first ballot as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think he should. The way that the Hall of Fame players are picked is terrible, in my opinion. I don't think that someone not picking you should affect, it affects the percentage of people picking you, right?
Yeah.
And that would affect if you make it or not. I think it should just be, if you get picked, or there's so many other ways you could do it, to be honest. And then, other people that you can involve in the voting. So you never really know, but that being said, Buster Posey should be a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, he was an unbelievable catcher. He had a bunch of injuries. I think I keep seeing the stat pop up, but he's had like 17 pass balls in his entire career, something crazy like that. Just never let a ball by him. That wasn't his fault.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best hitters as a catcher all time. And then the big thing is 3 World Series. I mean, catchers have such an impact on teams, both defensively and offensively. Just being able to work with a pitching staff and, for 3 World Series and get the win, that's unbelievable right there. He should definitely make it first ballot.
Do you think that instead of the Writers Association, do you think baseball would be better off if they sort of went with more like the Veterans Committee approach, which is how managers and people who fall off the ballot get in? Do you think that'd be a better way of inducting people the first time around?
Yes. I think just about any option other than what we have right now would be a better option. I mean, there's so many like biased sports writers that wrote 10 years ago that somehow still have Hall of Fame votes. And, some of them will pick 1 or 2 players. And then the thing that you can pick up to, for people that don't know, you can pick up to 10 on every Hall of Fame ballot, but you need a certain percentage of all the voters. So if you don't get picked on someone's ballot, then it negatively affects that person. It doesn't matter how many other people pick them, because you not picking them takes away from their percentage. So it's essentially you're picking your players and you're picking against everyone that you didn't choose. So having guys that pick like 1, 2, 3 players on this ballot, and they do that consistently, that's just brutal, because there's so many more guys that are deserving. It's just so bad. I mean, like I said, you've got guys that are, way out of baseball, totally different eras when they covered it. And it's just kind of sad the way that they do it, to be honest.
There's that one guy who hasn't voted for someone in like 5 years. He just submits blank ballots. The fact that guy is still allowed to vote, I don't know about you. I know for a fact if I was given a Hall of Fame ballot, I'm picking minimum 8 guys every single year, probably 10 that I'm voting for.
Yeah, and they're usually 8 to 10 that are very worthy. And just because you pick 8 to 10 doesn't mean they're going to be 8 to 10 inducted every year. Like, I understand if people don't, it's supposed to be more exclusive. You only get 3, 4, maybe 5 guys in a year. That makes sense. But when you're only picking 1 or 2 guys a year, or even not picking anyone and still on the ballot, it just makes no sense, because it hurts every other player. It's not, you can't like take yourself out of the vote. So it makes no sense to me. I think it's awful. I really wish they would change it, and I really wish they would hold a lot of these older writers to higher standards, and kind of like, I understand if there's rationale. Like, a lot of these people will put out their ballots and write an article on it, usually to get clicks or to get likes.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do that on purpose, just to get people to look at their content. And I think there definitely needs something to be changed there, and it should have been changed a long time ago. But I mean, I don't know. It really bothers me. I try to stay away from it whenever whenever I talk about it. It bothers me.
Fair enough. One last thing before we get you out of here. One pick for the day. That's all I need. Just one pick. I'm cold, John. I hit Teoscar in the Derby, and that was great. But outside of that, I'm ice cold.
Yeah, you're telling me. I mean, I have not been good lately for a very long time, but I think my favorite pick for today is the Mariners on the money line, -135 against the Astros. It's kind of crazy because the Astros have been playing so well, but the Mariners, if the Mariners are going to win a game, it's probably going to come today against Framber Valdez, the lefty, who hasn't been as sharp, and they're a lot better against lefties. So the Mariners have George Kirby going. He's pitched very well against the Astros in his career. He's much better at home. So I do think if the Mariners are going to get a win this series at home at home in this series, it's going to be today's game.
Love it. All right, John, thank you very much. A pleasure talking to you as always. Everyone, make sure you subscribe to John on Dub Club. I believe that's just right on your Twitter account, right? They can go through there.
Yep, the link's right there.
John, thank you so much for joining me. Good talking to you, and talk to you again, all right?
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
All right, there he is, John Bowman of Baseball with Bowman. We've got to take a time out. We'll be back. A lot more to talk about here on Outside the Box Score. With me, Mark Rowlands, your home for local sports in Syracuse on the Score 1260. If you're a fan of local craft beer, the only place you need to go is Myers Creek Brewing Company with 16 brews on tap at both the Cazenovia and Inner Harbor locations. Myers Creek has the best selection of locally brewed libations in all of central New York. Want a nice hazy IPA? The Velvet Fog is a must-try. More of a traditional Pilsner, how about the Floatin' on By? And for you sour drinkers, the It Takes Blue to Mango. So crack open a cold one with the official beer of Outside the Box Score, Myers Creek.
At Charney's Menswear and Tuxedo.
You need a life advice segment? No. Also, I did see your parents last night. No one wants life advice from me. I don't even know if I would be able to give any, succinct life advice that even makes sense. It would just be gibberish. Also, I agree that Bonds should be in. I don't listen to Russillo, actually. It's not that I dislike him or anything. I think he's pretty good, actually. I just don't listen to him. I don't consume sports media. Never really have. Outside of the sport itself. I listen to the rewatchables. That's all I get from the Ringer is the rewatchables. I'm not the world's biggest Bill Simmons fan, but I don't mind him. I think he's kind of funny. Unintentionally funny, I should say. I don't think he's trying. I listen to PMT on and off. Like I'm not I wouldn't call myself an AWL. But yeah, it's not that I don't listen to PMT, it's just I don't regularly listen. if they have a guest that I really like, I 100% agree it's the best sports podcast. But yeah, if they have a guest coming on that I want to listen to, absolutely I'll listen. I love the D&D episodes. I think they're hysterical. Yeah, I saw that. I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm planning on listening to that one. And we're back outside the box score with me, Mark Rowlands, your home for local sports in Syracuse, right here on the score 1260. I just remembered there is something I wanted to talk about today. And it's something that I've done on this show before where someone just makes a list and the list makes me mad. So I just talk about why the list makes me mad. And ESPN made a list. When ESPN makes a list, you know it's a doozy. They listed the top 100 athletes of the 20th or 21st century. Now, I actually, believe it or not, don't have a ton of like severe qualms with this list. There's some interesting placements, but for example, they put Michael Phelps number 1. Cool. I'm fine with that. 28-time Olympic medalist, 23 golds. When I think of U.S. at the Olympics, he is easily the first person I think of, is Michael Phelps. I have no problem with that at all. Serena Williams is number 2. Okay. That's fine. I have no problem with Serena Williams being number 2. She's got 23 Grand Slam titles. Absolutely deserves to be in the top 5. Lionel Messi, for sure. LeBron James, absolutely. Tom Brady. The top 5, I think, is fine. Would I put Simone Biles maybe higher than 7? Potentially. Potentially. But here's the one that gets me. The man who has 13 major wins in the 21st century, 11 of them came as the world number 1 golfer. Now, I know he started his career in the 90s, but Tiger Woods absolutely deserves to be in this top 5, in my opinion. If we're going strictly based on accomplishments, which it seems like we are, based on Phelps, Serena, Messi, and Brady being in the top 5. If we're going strictly based on that, and LeBron, excuse me, there aren't many more accomplished athletes in the 21st century than Tiger Woods. Because clearly this isn't just based on athleticism. If that was the case, Usain Bolt, who's number 9, would be a lot closer to number 1. And I just don't get how you can leave a guy like Tiger outside of the top 5. I do have one other qualm with this. And we have to include golfers. Absolutely, it's a sport. You're doing it physically. It's hard for me personally. And I know they are incredibly athletic, and what they do is far from easy. To see Lewis Hamilton listed ahead of Aaron Donald. I have no problem with Lewis Hamilton. Great driver. Very accomplished Formula 1 driver. 7-time champ, which is tied for the record with Michael Schumacher. 104 victories, 104 pole positions, 199 podiums. All records in the F1 community. But if we're talking athletes, to see him listed ahead of Aaron Donald, A man that, if he just looked at me funny, I might break my leg. It's just interesting. Just interesting. But I'm happy that this list didn't make me too upset. I do have a problem with the highest baseball player being at number 24. And that's Albert Pujols, which it absolutely should be Albert Pujols. But I would have liked to see a baseball player higher, especially when Mike Trout is at 30. But I'm not going to nitpick this one. So ESPN, I'll give you a decent job on the top 100 athletes of the 21st century. Just get some, like Barry Bonds is number 38. Like, come on. Granted, I know it's just the 21st century, so it lists his numbers since January 1st, 2000, 317 home runs, 4 consecutive MVPs, 6-time All-Star, 5-time Silver Slugger, and 2 batting titles, but it's Barry Bonds. It's Barry Bonds. So that's my take on the ESPN top 100 athletes of the 21st century. Someone who appeared on that list is going to be the subject of our next segment. When we come back, we're going to talk about Rory McIlroy, who comes in at number 93 on this list, by the way. We're going to talk about Rory McIlroy and the Open Championship, and we're going to see if we can't try to fix Rory McIlroy. We'll be right back here on Outside the Box Score with me, Mark Rowlands. For the best local beer in Central New York, the only place you need to look is Myers Creek Brewing Company, with 16 different beers on tap at both the Inner Harbor in Syracuse and the Palace that is the Cazenovia location. Myers Creek has something for everyone. Want a bite to eat? Both locations feature a kitchen with delicious pizzas, some of the best wings in Syracuse, and much more. Make sure to check out our friends at Myers Creek Brewing Company, the official bar of Outside the Box Score.
Truck.
I hate when I stretch and it causes a cramp in my back. Ooh. I'm going to Lake George. Got 2 days in Lake George, then Saratoga for a night, playing golf at the state park there, and then going to see Sammy Hagar at SPAC, and then a couple more days in Lake George after. Much needed vacation. Yeah, I'm gonna see if my dad wants to hit the track. It's I don't know if we're gonna have time is the thing. But it's like the hotel we're staying at. The hotel, SPAC, and the golf course are all like on the same grounds. It's great. We can just walk everywhere. It's my first SPAC show. I've never been to SPAC before. I'm very excited. Ultimate goal is to have a house in Saratoga. Sounds like a pretty good goal to me. Oh, the lawn stinks. We just got some really nice new chairs, so. Oh, boo. That sucks. I'm just excited to finally go. It's Sammy Hagar, Joe Satriani on guitar, and Jason Bonham on drums, and the guy whose name I can never remember, but the bass player from Van Halen on bass. They're doing they're doing Halen, Hagar, Zeppelin, Montrose. Like, they're doing all the bands that those guys played in. It's going to be fun. I've never been to CMAC either. I got to get out there soon. I'm glad the golf is actually on TV today. And we're back. Outside the Box Score with Mark Rowlands, your home for local sports in Syracuse, right here on the Score 1260. Pat and I are talking about concert venues in the chat. He says that the amphitheater is probably the best venue around here. I was just there recently. Went and saw Bob Dylan. Went and saw Robert Plant and Alison Krauss. Had a great time. Lucas Nelson replacing his father Willie during the show. It was the Outlaw Music Festival. It was a lot of fun. I do really like the amphitheater. I think the amphitheater is a really good venue. I try to get out there once or twice a summer, but that's not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about golf. Because I'm sitting here in the Score 1260 studios. Lucas Nelson was really good. I'm sitting here in the Score 1260 studios, and I'm watching the Open Championship over there at Royal Troon. And it's absolutely miserable weather, just the way it should be for the Open. It's raining, it's windy, it's awful. And I see at the top of the leaderboard Shane Lowry, a good Irish boy, one of my favorite golfers on tour. Love watching him play. Great hands, great player. Already won a Claret Jug in the past. And I think, you know who should be at the top of that leaderboard? Rory McIlroy. A guy that has won 4 majors in his career. He's won the PGA twice, the U.S. Open once, and the Open Championship once. In 2014, had a great year when he ends up winning the PGA and the Open, 2 out of the 4 majors in 1 year. Probably the best year of his career. And it seems that when he's not in a major, he still goes out and wins. Always. This year, he won the Zurich Classic of New Orleans, him and Shane Lowry. It's a team event. That was his 25th win on tour. In his next start, he won the Wells Fargo, which it's not a major, but a big enough event, long-time event on the PGA Tour. And then you get to a major where he missed a cut at the Masters. He ended up playing really well in the U.S. Open, but then he bogeys 3 out of the last 4. That was his best chance this year. And now he misses the cut by shooting 78 on Thursday and I think 77 yesterday. So I'm trying to think, what is Rory McIlroy's problem? I think part of his problem is he no longer has the for lack of a better term, the eye of the tiger, which Tiger Woods was so known for. That drive to, I'm going to beat every single one of you by 7 minimum. That's something Rory had when he was younger. He was very driven. He was incredibly intense on the golf course. Off the golf course, he's always been quite the affable guy. But on the golf course was when I'm going to lock in. And then we had the decline of Tiger Woods, both based on age-related and other circumstances that happened with Tiger. And they say, well, you're up next, Rory. It's your tour now. And it has been, quote, his tour for a long time now. 10 years. I'd say for 10 years, Rory McIlroy has been probably the most famous golfer not named Tiger Woods. And Tiger still pops up and he plays the majors and he misses the cut. But it really, once all the weight of the golfing world got put on Rory McIlroy's shoulders, that's when it all fell apart. And if I'm Rory, I just start to say, okay, we got this kid right now and Scotty Scheffler, who wins every tournament he plays in, it seems. We've got Xander Schauffele, who just won the PGA, defending Olympic gold medalist for the U.S. We've got this young kid in Ludwig Oberg, who just joined the tour, and already people are declaring him that he's going to win multiple majors. And I'm not saying I disagree because he's a tremendous player. There is a whole crop of people that the PGA Tour should be looking to and saying, okay, this isn't one man's tour anymore. It was Tiger's tour for a long time. And we saw one of the most dominant athletes in the history of sports in golf. Even when Nicklaus was winning all those majors, he had Palmer, he had Player, he had other guys that competed with him. He had Tom Watson. No one came close to Tiger during his peak. Phil, sure, but it took Phil forever to win a major. Never completed the Grand Slam. He's got 6 runner-ups at the U.S. Open. But even with Phil, it never seemed like he was on that level. Not the Tiger level. No one was on the Tiger level. And with Rory McIlroy, he never got to that level where it should have been just him. The PGA Tour should have said, hey, Rory, you're going to be one of the guys. You're going to be part of this group. It's going to be you. It's going to be Jordan Spieth, who was coming up around that time. A couple years later, you got Justin Thomas. That's the group that the PGA Tour should have relied on for their marketing. You had Ricky Fowler at the time, who I know Ricky hasn't had the best career, but talk about a fan favorite. Ricky Fowler has been my favorite golfer since I was 10 years old. Because, yes, it was because of the orange, the outfits, the hair. He was cool. In 2011, that was all very cool. And he was the reason that I became such a golf fan. I'm a golf nut now, and a lot of it is because of Ricky Fowler. But the tour was pinned on Rory. The future of golf was pinned on Rory McIlroy. And I think it's time for Jay Monahan and the board that is the PGA Tour to say, all right, Rory, it's not your tour anymore. You go out there and focus on the golf, and just the golf. Not live, not the future of the tour, not this potential merger that's allegedly going to happen at some point. You go out there and you play golf. And I think that's the only way that Rory McIlroy can get back to being a major champion, because I think it's going to happen again, but not until the only thing on that guy's mind is club in hand and ball on the fairway. I hope it works. I hope Rory fixes it, because he is a very fun golfer to watch when he's on. But when he's off, there's no point in even following him on the featured groups. One more timeout. We'll be back in just a minute here on Outside the Box Score, your home for local sports in Syracuse on the Score 1260. If you're a fan of local craft beer, the only place you need to go is Myers Creek Brewing Company, with 16 brews on tap at both the Cazenovia and Inner Harbor locations. Myers Creek has the best selection of locally brewed libations in all of central New York. Want a nice hazy IPA? The Velvet Fog is a must-try. More of a traditional Pilsner, how about the Floatin' on By? And for you sour drinkers, the It Takes Blue to Mango. So crack open a cold one with the official beer of Outside the Box Score, Myers Creek.
This clearance sale is...
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of cool that that's what Tiger did. There's no denying it. It's pretty cool. You know it's raining hard when the guys have the backwards hats on. Shout out Billy Horschel. I love the Open. Dude, there's some Brit watching this right now, seeing Horschel with a backwards hat on, having a heart attack. I haven't seen his bag. What's his bag? Oh, that's dope. Why wouldn't you? You know, there's the whole like golf bags have gone too far. It's too much. Golf bags have gone way too far. They're huge. They're way too heavy. Oh, they're showing the radar right now, and this stuff is not going anywhere. It's going to rain all day. I love it. I haven't got it yet. I'm waiting to get, I was going to get it this week, but then I was like, I'm going to be gone for 5 days, and I'm not going to play it. So I'm just going to wait until I get back from my trip. So I will be getting it next week. Oh yeah, I will be purchasing it. There's no question about it.
.com, 215 Brennan Avenue in Syracuse and in Watertown.
And we're back outside the box score with me, Mark Rowlands, your home for local sports in Syracuse, right here on the score 1260. I want to get back to the golf for a second because, like I said, I'm sitting here in the studio watching the Open Championship. I just wanted to mention Siwoo Kim made one of the best golf shots you'll ever see. He shot level par 71 today, but on the 17th hole, pulls out a 3-iron on the par 3 at Royal Troon and drains it. He landed it short of the green, and that's how firm it is, even with the all the rain they've been getting. The ground is still so firm on this links course that it bounced short of the green, took a big bounce up, trickled right into the hole, 238 yards, the longest hole-in-one in the history of the Open Championship. He said he's had about 6 holes-in-one before, but this is the most memorable. It is the first hole-in-one in the Open on the 17th hole at Troon North, or Royal Troon, excuse me. So that's pretty awesome. Longest hole-in-one ever made in the Open. The previous one, the record that it beat, was Frank Licklider II at Royal Latham and St. Anne's in 2001, 212 yards. So shout out Siwoo Kim for making one of the best golf shots you will ever see. That's going to wrap things up. Thank you to John Bowman for joining me. Always a pleasure to talk to him. Thanks to Pat out there in the chat and anyone who may have been listening. We'll be back next week. Same time, same channel, 11 a.m. right here on the Score 1260. Peace.